And now it's time for the Pretty Neat Podcast picks.
Let's do this.
Yes.
Let's start the year off, the calendar year, with a 6 for 6.
Oh man, I would love that.
We can do it.
I agree.
Definitely can do it.
Do we want to talk about any of the prelims before we get into the main event and the the featured prelim, which are the 6 fights that we do make picks for on an app that will not be named until they make us an affiliate? Or are
I
any of
don't
these
want
jumping
to
out?
talk about any of these.
It's not really.
I would
much
just
jumping.
say quickly, just a couple comments. Farid Basharat on the prelims. He's a up and coming prospect.
Mhm.
He's undefeated, which is interesting to keep him there. You got
Was
Andrei
he-
Arlovsky.
Wasn't Farid the winner of Road to UFC? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
I don't know if he was. I
Maybe he's
believe
on
he
it.
is one of 2 Basharat brothers, the
That could be
Bash
what it is.
brothers.
Got it. Man.
And then you have Semi the Jedi.
The
That
Bash
Semi
brothers.
the Bash brothers. You like that? That's 2 this episode for me.
Yeah.
Semi the Jedi versus Preston Parsons should be a good fight, and then Andrei Arlovsky, the Ageless Wonder,
Mm-hmm.
who's a massive underdog against
Yeah.
Waldo. Where's Waldo Cortez Acosta?
And we're
that's
picking
it.
that. We're picking
We
that.
are?
That's
Mhm.
number 6. Yeah. Yeah. And if you want
Oh, it is
to,
number 6. Okay,
we could jump right into that. So
let's go. Look at that.
we've got that line right up. Ignore the blank boxes on the side. That's where our faces will go. Yeah, man. I don't. Andrei Arlovsky's chin is gone, in my opinion. This is the UFC's way of saying it's time to go, brother. In my opinion, but he also sells tickets. So I mean, when it comes to a fight night, Andrei Arlovsky being on it is going to help, at least in some ways. But man, I don't like this at all for Andrei Arlovsky. And our options on this on our over-unders are 38.5 significant strikes, 8.5 fight time in minutes, and 114.5 fantasy score for Waldo Cortez Acosta, who is a large favorite. I'll jump in on this one. I'll take this one first. My initial reaction is under on fight time. That's my initial reaction.
Yep, I am right there with you. Looking at just a couple of key indicators for me. One, Andrei Arlovsky is 44. His opponent is 32. Similar reach. Significant strikes landed per minute. Huge disparity.
Huge.
And it's huge. Huge. 6.97 significant strikes landed per minute for Waldo
That's a
Cortez
lot.
Acosta versus 3.78 for Andre. Now, that's not to say that Andre can't catch him, and that would also play into our favor for the under. But Waldo has a higher significant strike accuracy, and neither of them go for takedowns.
I also appreciate the negative strike the strike differential for Waldo. I mean, you can see that the Arlovsky's getting hit just as much as he's throwing. And the defense is there for Waldo. The speed should be there for Waldo. Everything should be there for Waldo. So that's my initial thought on this particular one is under on the fight time.
I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah. And significant strikes, like we were talking, these are fucking heavyweights. This could be 2 shots and it's done. You know.
Agreed.
So,
Yep.
and a fantasy score, we've just been burned on that. because of what was it? We missed it by half a significant strike on
We've
that.
missed it by inside of 3 points a number of times.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a rough one. So it
Yeah.
seems like our pick on this one is going to be fight time. That's the one to choose. I'm gonna make this the
Yay.
right color. That way it looks pretty. Perfect. Awesome. Then we move up the card. Bruno Fajeda is the
We don't
favorite.
talk about Bruno Fajeda.
No,
Should be his
no,
nickname.
no.
They talk an awful lot about him though.
Yeah. And he's taking on Phil Haas. Ryan, you want to break this one down?
Yeah, this one is almost a pick 'em. It's a plus 110 for Phil Haas. It's a minus 130 for Bruno Fajeda. Similar in age. Phil Haas has a very significant reach advantage. They're throwing and landing roughly the same amount of significant strikes per minute, roughly 5.5 each. Phil Haas has the higher significant strike accuracy, and it's actually much higher at 66.79%. Versus Bruno Fajeda at 54.55. And the thing that's really like sealing it for me in terms of who I think will win, which is Phil Haas, he's getting 2.28 takedowns on average, whereas Bruno Fajeda has 0 and has kept everything standing. So you got a guy 2 inches taller. Phil Haas he's 4 years older, but I don't think that is exceptionally significant. Who has a 5.5 reach advantage. They're throwing similar amounts of strikes, but Phil Haas is landing more accurately.
We don't talk about has an average of 4.24 knockdowns per 15 minutes. His average fight time is 2 minutes and 22 seconds.
He knocked out RoboCop, which was a big upset. Gregory Rodriguez. I remember that. But a lot of that, I think, was Gregory just getting caught looking. Like he everything about that was just Gregory getting hit in the face when he probably shouldn't have. So I'm kind of there with you. Are you leaning either way on any of these options? We have 22.5 significant strikes. We have 4.75 minutes of fight time, or we have 77.5 on a fantasy score.
Under on fight time, and I will say this. I know I picked Phil Haas, whatever his name is, to win. In his last 5 fights, Phil Haas, all of his losses have been to first round TKO.
Yeah, if he's gonna lose, it'll be in the first round.
Under 4.5 minutes for every single one of them.
So then why not the over on fantasy score? 77.5 feels low if we think Bruno's going to do it in the first round.
Yeah,
it does feel low.
That does.
But
feel
you're saying you don't
low.
think he's going to win, actually, so then we should not pick that.
I don't think that's unreasonable. Yeah.
I don't know enough about either of these guys to really have an opinion. The odds are it's essentially a pick 'em, just fight odds, and then I don't know the all those numbers seem weirdly low for different reasons.
Yeah, I think it's the chinniness of Phil Haas. That last one he lost against Askarov, was that his name? I just had it up on the screen. Just looked bad. Like Ryan was just saying, he gets TKO'd in the first round. If you catch his chin, he's done. And that's exactly what Bruno did to Gregory Rodriguez. So, I mean, I'm kind of with you on the fight time, as opposed to anything else.
The under?
The under.
The under on the fight time. So Bruno Fajeda's last 5 fights, 4 wins, 1 loss. Unfortunately, his last fight was a loss that was also a first round TKO in July. But prior to that, first round TKO, first round TKO, first round TKO, first round TKO, and all victories. Two of those are outside the organization. One was a Dana White Contender Series, and then one was at UFC 283 against Gregory Rodriguez that Aaron was mentioning. And then he lost by TKO. So like somewhat hedging my bets, still like the under because you have the finishing potential for either.
Mhm.
And it just seems like Bruno is going to come out guns blazing.
I agree. It's also the card opener. You know, they want that shit to be exciting. The matchmakers definitely want to put something up that's gonna light up social media right after it starts to get people going on. So that maybe that's a little bit inside the sanctum, but at the same time, I do think this is gonna be fireworks and it's gonna be early. Are we
Agreed.
going fight time? And we're
Under.
going less. We're
Yeah.
going less on the fight time. I should have probably denoted that on the last one. The last one we were going less as well. Beauty.
Alright.
Now we
Ricky Simone and Ricky Simon.
yes.
Simone?
Does he go by Simone? I think he
Well,
goes
I
by
don't know.
Simone.
Simone.
Not a Frenchman. Mario Bautista. I really feel like there is an exploitable statistic here.
What's that?
I think it's the under on fantasy score. Ricky does not land a whole lot of strikes, 3 per minute, significant. He absorbs 3.23, so that's a negative differential. Not good.
Yeah, he's a
his average
control
fight
guy.
time 12 and a half minutes.
Damn.
12 minutes and 38 seconds to be exact. So, even a third round finish, does that get him above 90? Does that get him to 91, I should say?
It could, depending on how he controls the fight, but he's a heavy grappler. Like he's a heavy grappler. There's gonna be a lot of cage work on this one. Um, I don't even like and the reason I want to stay away from significant strikes on this one is Mario Batista does like to box. He's just a little bit older. He's been in the game for a while, and I think Simone has the
So,
hunger, but
say it goes the distance.
yeah,
Effectively, Ricky lands 3 per minute, so that's 15. So he lands 45 significant strikes if the fight goes all 15 minutes.
which is maybe 30 points.
But I'm saying we could also potentially take the under there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's under on significant strikes. Ryan, what do you think?
Tough. When I was looking at this, it just like who do I think can win? I don't like the way Ricky Simone looked against Song Yadong. That's his most recent fight. Prior to that, he hadn't fought in a year, and then prior to that, he hadn't fought in a year, where he fought 3 times in 2021. Mario Batista is younger than Ricky Simone. He's 30. Similar reach. He throws far more. He does like to mix up some takedowns. He's a more accurate striker, and he goes for more submissions. So maybe Ricky doesn't go for a lot of takedowns, but tries to control and grapple along the fence because he's worried about submission threats. He's on a 5-fight win streak. Mario Batista is in the UFC. So for me to think like he's a underdog is interesting. And this is all in the UFC. 2022 decision win, then a submission, and then his last one against Damone Blackshear, who you guys may remember had the third twister in UFC history last year at UFC 292, which was the Aljamain Sean O'Malley UFC pay-per-view card. He beat him by unanimous decision. He's good. It's a big step up in competition, which is why I think he's a slight underdog here, but I think he actually wins.
Yeah, he could be a
So
really live dog.
I like Simone under on fantasy.
Yeah.
You sold me on it all the way. Like despite what I said about him being in the game for a while, You sold me on that because I do think Batista has a really good shot at this, and we haven't picked a dog yet. At least not that I can recall from the previous. So yeah, I'm for it. We're going under on 90.5 on the fantasy score for Ricky Simone versus Mario Batista. That fantasy score, of course, would be going to Ricky Simone being the favorite, but we think he's probably gonna lose. So there you go. We got 3 more picks to make for our 6th pick, and we get one of my favorite fighters. Mr. Jim Miller's coming back, and this one is hard for me because he is the underdog. I hate that about this fight, that he's the underdog, because I don't know what the UFC is thinking. They have to get Jim Miller on UFC 300 in April. So
I
he's
no,
got
they don't.
they
don't have to
do
do
because
that.
he was on 100, he was on 200. Let's fucking do it. He's still
they don't have to.
they
They don't care about that.
it is mandated by pretty neat law.
Oh, you're instituting a mandate here in the second week of January. Okay.
We're getting Dana on the phone. We're
All
getting
right.
Dana on the phone. What's Gabriel Benitez's last fight? I'm gonna bring that up. Unless one of you guys got it already.
I got it.
I got it.
I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
So he's it's interesting. Jim Miller, we know he's older. He's 40 years old. Gabriel Benitez, nicknamed Mowgli, which is fun. 35. So it was against Carlos Ontiveros.
Look at
and
that
was in
fucker's hair.
He is a wild looking dude. Looks like he's out of Sweeney Todd in the like tone of his
That's
lighting in that picture.
That's Splenda Sean O'Malley.
That's Sean O'Malley if Sean O'Malley was in Sweeney Todd. Boom. Got
Boom.
He's gonna sing a song now.
Fuck it.
All right,
That's
so here's the thing. Gabriel Benitez didn't fight at all in 2023.
Oh wow.
His last fight was in 2022 in August.
Yeah.
Which was a first round KO.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Prior to that, first round TKO loss to Daniel Onama. If you remember, he's a pretty good fighter. And then prior to that, a first round David Onama, my bad. And then Billy Quarantillo also knocked him out in the 3rd round. So he can be got. And that's how Jim Miller's been winning of late.
Yep.
Has been with fisticuffs as opposed to submissions.
Yeah. His last submission was like Cerrone, wasn't it? Didn't I just see that? I think. Yeah, regardless of that, Jim Miller's also been very active. You know,
He's been very active.
And I think that plays to his advantage as a veteran and just as a fighter in general. I don't think the guy's ever out of camp. And I appreciate that about him. I also feel like this is that thing about him being on 300. I think that they want Jim Miller to be in a fight where he will take very little damage, whether he wins or loses, which is harder to do if you lose, obviously. I kind of think they're expecting Jim to get this done for the reasons you said. He catches people. And I think that Gabriel's a guy he can catch.
So that makes the pick a little bit weird.
Does. It does. And then what's weird too is that the picks on Prize Picks are for Gabriel, whereas UFC does show Jim Miller as a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ESPN has him as a favorite as a -125.
Interesting. So it is pretty much a coin flip. The options here on our over-unders are 37.5 significant strikes for Gabriel, 8.5 minutes or less, or more or less on fight time, or 71.5 fantasy score for Gabriel. Now, one thing I can see, I could see this being a long fight. If there is no catching, if nobody gets caught here, this could be a unanimous decision or a split. And that kind of points me towards that fantasy score again. I know we've gone to it a couple times tonight already. But but these guys are going to throw, so that significant strikes number seems too low.
So they both actually average a little bit more than 8.5 minutes.
Interesting.
Jim at 9:36 and Benitez at 8:31.
But Jim's is over such a long period of time also,
Mhm.
and he's been finishing
Mhm.
people more lately. Like
Yeah,
as
that's true. We need to look at his most recent fights.
So
Yeah.
he had first round whoever something Butler decision loss to Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
He beat Cowboy in the second round.
Yep.
Let's see. So two of his last 6 fights have gone past 8.5 minutes. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
that could be part of that whole time thing. Maybe over on the time here is not a bad move actually, because Jim does find his spots. He doesn't
The
rush.
under just feels like we're cutting it close.
Yeah.
For
It
time,
it,
yeah, I agree.
it
If we
very
think
well
that
could be.
if we think Jim Miller's going to win, why
It's the
wouldn't we just
fantasy
go
score.
under on fantasy?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm leaning towards.
And at the very least, it's not one of those weird like 115 point numbers. And so we're
Yeah.
basically picking Jim Miller to win.
Yeah.
I can live with that.
Yeah. We're living with it.
We
That
love this one.
Yes, we do. Future flyweight champ
Starboy.
Manel Kopp is fighting. Uh, Matthias Nicolau is no joke. Of course,
Yep.
this is a rematch. Of course, Matthias Nicolau won the first time they fought, but it was a split decision, and a lot of people thought Kopp actually won that fight. So this is kind of a taking it back type of moment. The two options we have here are for Manel are 65.5 significant strikes or 85.5 on the fantasy score.
That's tough. Like the strikes stands out. Like that's a lot of strikes.
That's a ton of strikes. Remember his last fight was kind of boring? Or am I crazy?
No, it was not. He
It
didn't
was
have
boring.
the showing people kind of expected.
Mm-hmm.
In that fight, though, he landed a total of 112 significant strikes in 15 minutes.
Yowza.
So
Yowza.
I'm looking at their last fight when they fought on UFC Fight Night, Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. Remember that where
Yeah,
Bilal got
eye
poked in
poke.
the eye?
Yeah.
Fun.
And lost his chance at
Uh,
ever getting a title in the UFC.
So wild.
He landed
In that fight,
61 significant strikes.
61, correct. And Mateus got 55, but had the 2 takedowns. You would have to expect that Mateus is going to again go for some type of ground attack, control, takedown, which then means that Manel is dealing with that, defending it at the very least. And if he is taken down, right, you're not scoring significant strikes from bottom position, which leads me to believe that taking the under on significant strikes seems like the appropriate call. The 85.5, I just don't know what the fuck to do with that on the fantasy score. Like, honestly,
Is
like,
it
what do you
that
do with
just
that?
screams stay away to me?
You're like,
Is it me
over, under.
or does it feel like they have been giving fighters more significant strikes in the last year or so than they did for a while?
It kind of
Uh,
does. We lost on
I
one
don't
of
have a way to
those.
prove it, but it feels like they're being a little more generous with what a
like, hey guys,
significant
what's
strike
your
is.
definition of significant?
Yeah.
Let's be clear here.
This one, I agree wholeheartedly with Dom on staying away from this fantasy score. There's so many decisions in Manel Kopp's past. Um, and I don't remember if it was Dan Hardy on Full Reptile or if it was the MMA guru who pointed out a really good fact, which is that Nicolau is, geez, who's the fighter I'm thinking of? Uh, he fights, he slows the fight down. He brings it to like the level of the fight that he wants it to be. Who is it that we talk about saying he fight Kelvin Gastelum? You know, he fights to the level of his opponent. He doesn't really push, he just kind of reacts. Mateus is kind of similar in that he's like, okay, striking exchange. Now we grapple. We got away. Striking exchange. Now we grapple. And it's just kind of hoping to get it to the ground. Um, it actually makes me like an over on the significant strikes, unlike what Ryan said, because of those crazy ass numbers that we were talking about. This is a rematch, so maybe there won't be as much of a feeling out process as the first time where they might hesitate a little bit. Um, and I think that that also means Manel might be a little bit more ready for takedowns and grapplings and might have some better escapes, maybe using a little bit of a couple of traps, maybe even. Um, but 65 significant strikes is a ton. It's a ton. It's a ton. And I feel like
It's a
Manel needs
ton.
to make a statement. He kind of does after the last one. He's riding around the fucking Lamborghini on embedded and all that shit.
A couple of December of 22, he had a 5-round 2 against is it David Dvorak? Yeah.
Yeah, but he only had 55 significant strikes
He
in that
beat he knocked
fight.
out the deep fake Zamagulev in the first round.
Mhm.
He knocked out Ode Osborne in the first round. He lost to Nicolau and he lost to Alex Pantoja in what I believe is his UFC debut, which is kind of wild.
Who's ranked higher in this? Is it Matthias?
It's Manel.
It's Manel. Manel's ranked higher than
I
Matthias right
believe
now.
so. No, they're 5'6".
5 and 6. Oh yeah. Okay.
Manel landed 74 significant strikes against Alex Pantoja.
That's pretty wild, but Alex throws a lot
But
more than he grapples.
nope, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Pantoja's number.
Oh.
Manel landed 49 significant strikes in that fight. So he really has the one outlier fight where he landed a boatload. But I do think it's partially being judged differently.
Yeah. Now I'm going under on that significant strikes with Ryan. You know, I think this could be some fireworks again, potentially,
I'll
or
go with you.
or a lot of heavy ground, a lot of grappling to try and negate that power that he's bringing. So yeah, we're let's stick with that. Let's stick with the less significant strikes for Manel. And you know what? That's he gets it done fucking early, or yeah, there's a lot of grappling in this one and some top control from Mateus where he can't strike back. I like it. I like it. So we're going under 65.5 significant strikes for Starboy Manel Cop on this pick. That brings us to the main event, and we have all the options to choose from on our over-unders between Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. The first being significant strikes, which is 36.5. Fight time is 8.5 minutes. Fantasy score is 115.5 points and 1.5 takedowns. I'm going to jump out and say, I think that takedown number is too low. I'm over on the takedowns on this one because Johnny Walker has an enormous reach advantage in this. He's got like a 7 or 6 or 7, maybe even more hinge reach advantage in the striking, which is what he's going to want to do. And you negate that by taking the fucker down. And I do not believe that Ankalaev is seeing a submission threat from Johnny Walker, which is really the only thing you should be afraid of since it's its only lost was a submission to Paul Craig. Like way back. So like for me, over on 1.5 takedowns for Magomed is my personal choice off the bat of these 4 choices.
So Magomed took down Jan Blachowicz twice.
Yep, 10 attempts as well. And I would
Yeah.
say, I was going to pose the question to you guys. Do we think who do we think is harder to take down, Jan Blachowicz or Johnny Walker? I think the answer is Jan Blachowicz.
I
was
agree.
trying to find Johnny Walker's takedown defense is 57%.
And
Yawn.
I'll throw out there too that in their first fight, Magomed and Johnny Walker, because this is the
Yawn's
rematch.
is 69, so he's considerably more difficult to take down.
Oh, geez, yeah. In their first fight, which was a no contest because of that bullshit ref question about asking Johnny Walker where he was, and he was like the desert. He's in fucking Abu Dhabi. That's a correct answer. Let the guy fight. But like, uh, in that fight, Magomed did take down Johnny Walker, but Johnny Walker got right back up.
Well, that doesn't matter. Let him.
No, I think that does matter. It means that Magomed would be taking him down again
Well,
because he's
yeah,
not being able to
that's what
hold
I
him
mean. I
down.
mean, it doesn't matter for the. All he has to do is get him down the one time. He doesn't have to hold him there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. What do you think about? I think the fantasy score on this is bullshit. Like,
It just scares me.
yeah, that 115.
It doesn't align because you have a 115 as your over under for fantasy, but they're saying your line for fight time is 8.5 minutes.
But his average fight time is 11:40. That's the Johnny Walker flash knockout is what they're talking about right there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right that they're thinking on the flash knockout from Johnny Walker. It almost feels to me like the 36.5 significant strikes and the 8.5 fight times are the you think Johnny Walker's gonna win this
Mhm.
fight bets.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
But I don't know who's gonna win. Magomed's a pretty heavy favorite here, which is kind of interesting.
Mhm.
I think I like the takedowns as well. He averages just over one per 15 minutes, so he's just got to get him one more time. Um,
Which I think is the right game plan for Johnny Walker.
Probably.
I
No,
just do.
Magomed.
For Magomed against Johnny Walker, I should say.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I do think Johnny Walker's gonna win this. I do think Johnny Walker's gonna kind of end the Magomed stuff that's been happening. I mean, he's had that draw with Jan, which kind of blew his title shot, and then the no contest. Like, it just doesn't feel like he's the right guy to be putting into the light heavyweight picture anymore. At least for an immediate title contention. I think Johnny Walker, an issue that he has, which was pointed out on a few different MMA podcasts, is that when he gets hit, he looks like it hurt him more than it did.
Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there will be an early stoppage in this at all. Um, I still do. I like Johnny Walker. I even think he's probably going to knock Magomed out, but I don't think it will be early in the fight. I think Magomed's going to close. He's not going to stay at distance. He's going to have to grapple. He's going to have to go down.
Okay.
So
Who beat
we're
him?
we're saying over on the takedowns, right?
I'm leaning over on the takedowns.
Yes, I like over on
Yeah.
takedowns.
What were you about to ask, Tom?
I was just trying to figure out who the only person to beat Ankalaev was. It was Paul Craig.
It was Paul Craig. Yeah, I think it was Ankalaev's debut
It
or
was,
his
yeah.
second. Yeah, and it was at the very end of the fight, mind you.
What
Paul Craig was getting the shit.
literally 1 second before the end of the fight.
Yeah, where are the stats on that fight too? Because Magomed was beating the shit out of Johnny Walker before that happened. Or sorry, beating the shit out of Paul
So
Craig.
more total strikes, more
Yeah,
significant strikes, no knockdowns.
he had that weird thing with Ion Kudalaba also.
What is REV? What stat is that?
I don't know.
Shit. REV?
Yeah.
Is that like his? Is that like
It
your?
says
Not finding that.
I wonder if it if it's on the UFC website, it's total strikes, takedowns, submission attempts, REV. Go down a little bit. Yeah.
Is that like I mean, it feels like maybe it'd be like a reverse of position, but
Yeah, I don't know. I
I
think
don't
it's
know.
a typo.
But I mean, even looking at this is what I was mentioning before, like full fight. Look at Magomed, and almost 90 strikes,
Mm-hmm.
no takedowns, mind you, but you don't try and take down Paul Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Like that makes total sense. Um, or reverse position maybe. That I could see that being. But I mean, yeah. Anyway, Magomed was beating the shit out of Paul Craig until he lost by submission. Is just the point I'm trying to make. Um,
So we go more on the takedowns.
I think we go more on the takedowns.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm all in on more on the takedowns.
I love that. I love that. So that's the picks that we're making. I'll kick us off on recapping these brief picks. Ryan, if you want to get the next one, and then Dom, you want the one after that. The first pick we chose for our sixth pick is that Magomed Ankalaev will be scoring more than 1.5 takedowns in his fight with Johnny Walker.
All right. This is the people's main event. Manel
Mhm.
Kopp versus Mateusz
Mhm.
Nicolau. And we're just scared to death about this fantasy score of 85.5. So we're basically stay away, right? Stay away. We're going significant strikes. We think that Mateusz is going to try and take down Manel Kopp. We're going under. We're going under on 65.5. He does have an outlier fight in his last fight where he had over 100. And we are concerned about how they're scoring significant strikes. But all that being said, we're still hammering the under on that 65.5 on the 6 strikes.
Aaron's main event is Jim Miller
The person's main
and
event.
Gabriel Benitez. And Gabriel's not going to get to 72 fantasy points.
We agree. And in the Ricky Simone versus Mario Bautista fight, we have decided that Mario Bautista is probably going to win this fight. And therefore, the fantasy score of 90.5 for Ricky Simone is going to be less. I'll even double down on that and say if this does go the distance and Ricky Simone wins, I don't think he's going to do enough to get that score. He's not going to get it. He's not going to get knockdowns. Probably not. And there's just going to be grappling heavy. Probably
You
even
do
few.
know that for sure is now what's going to happen.
Well, that's
It's
the
gonna
point of the
happen. He's gonna
show.
get 92 points.
Yeah, you're right.
91.25 points.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he is.
All right. Bruno, we don't talk about versus Phil Haas. We think it's going to be just an absolute barn burner, and we don't think this makes it out of the first round. With that being said, we have some statistical evidence to back that up with previous fights all finishing relatively quickly. So we are also, again, we're reversing our historical course and we're hammering the under here on the fight time at a 4.75 total minutes. We're going under, and we think this is a firework ready to pop off with a first round finish.
I like when you read on a sports betting website and they'll be like, "Well, my model predicts that Alabama is going to beat, Ohio State by 7 points, and then they lose by 15 or some shit." We have a pretty neat model.
One of my favorite quotes is that
Roll damn tide.
what is it? All models are wrong and some are useful.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Where's Waldo Cortez Acosta has a dinner reservation? He does not want to be in the cage for longer than 8.5 minutes with Andrei Arlovsky. And we think the under there too. So we have 5 unders and an over. You guys.
There we go. We're taking a stab
We're
at it
gonna
with this
go
one.
ahead and kick it off 2024 with a 6 out of 6. Lock it in. I just played it.
Yep.
And it's
I'm locked in.
happening.
I will be locking this in as well, fellas. I just wanted to have the video all prepped up for it.
We believe
Um,
you.
if-
I'm not gonna think about it again though until Saturday when the fights start. I'll tell you that much.
Yes, yeah. Just let it sit, let it simmer. It's also a great way to join the main event. If you all in the fellowship out there listening to this week's episode are playing our picks, good luck. We definitely want to start the year off with a 6 for 6. That would be fantastic. And if you kill it, make sure you let us know on the mailbag at the website or Instagram.
Even if you go the opposite of what we say, which a lot of times would have won you a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a really fun way to watch fights because every fight, starting with that featured prelim or the rare, we had a couple of them last year, 6 event main cards. Having that little bit of extra interest on it really makes a card like this a lot of fun.
It does. It does. And I like the fact that I usually have the fights up on the TV, of course, but I always have ESPN up on my phone because they tend to try and show the live numbers as they're
Mhm.
rolling in. And even though they adjust, usually, I don't know,
Significant
15.
strikes do anyway.
Yeah, man, we would have had a 6. Was that one of those ones where we would have had a 6 for 6 and we ended up with a 5 for 6 because they undercut it by 2?
I think we ended up with 4 and we would have ended up with 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we do have a positive record of cashing.
Yes,
So
we do. I
it's
think every
definitely-
time but once, right?
Yeah, every time but once. 5 out of 6 that we've done this
Mhm.
for, we have cashed. So definitely get on board with us. We'll be posting the pics on our Instagram. That's at the Pretty Neat Podcast. Get on there and follow. And if you go to our website, theprettyneatpodcast.com, don't forget to scroll down where you can check out some of the badass card sellers that sell sweet UFC memorabilia.
It's time for the Pretty Neat Podcast.